Hey, Lucky. How's it going, buddy? So yeah, I just had to do another video. I'm just so thankful for the 100 subs, reaching 100 subs, and you being a part of that, and being so engaged and willing to work at it and ask questions and all that kind of stuff. And by no means do I claim to be a phenomenal drummer or have all the answers or stuff like that, but I do have a really great mentor who is teaching me, the importance of everything that I'm showing you. And I promise to strive. I'll always strive to keep getting better and better. And that's why I say too that like you could just practice doubles for years before you get good double, even nice even doubles. So that patience and discipline part of it's really important. But let me try to just cover it a little slower, okay? Because it is kind of it's a methodical process, okay? And it's kind of like, building Legos when we were younger. I don't know your age, but the way you speak and all of that, it seems like you're older. But building Legos back in the day, right? You start with a foundation. You have to have a nice, strong foundation, right, in order to build the houses or towers or whatever. So then you've got your walls, right? You build your walls, and then you put maybe a window there and a door, right? And maybe a tree outside, and then you put the roof on top, right? So there's a process to it. You can't just put a roof on top, right? It'll just fall to the base, right? So that's kind of a good way to think about it too, is that you really have to work on that foundational approach. And I know part of it's frustrating. It's like, a lot of students too, I tell them, it's like, I know you came for the fun part. You just want to learn how to play. You just want to play drums, right? And a lot of it, because we're an academy and we're pretty methodical with our curriculum, is that we use books. And the book work is usually the least favorite that people want to do, right? Because it's book work and homework, right? And another thing I said too is I'll teach you how to read too. And it really is not difficult. And I am showing you some full drum set patterns, okay? So this is not how music starts. It starts with just snare. You're playing just snare, learning your note values, how those are phrased, different combos, left, right, doing those kind of things. And that's what that stick control for the snare drummer will really help with. That and Alfred's Book 1 stick control is great. But this is what patterns look like, okay? So the X's at the top, at the very top here, that's your hi-hat, okay? And so see these 2 bars? That denotes that they're 16th notes. You can see I kind of cut it off, but 16th notes on the hi-hat is what it says up here. So you'll either see 1 bar connecting these notes, which means they're 8th notes, or 2 bars connecting them, which means they're 16th notes, or even 3 bars, which means that they're 32nd notes, okay? And you'll also see quarter notes, but not so much in the hi-hat. So now I'm coming down to the snare and bass. So just remembering those X's are your hi-hat. So seeing how they're split up into 2 different bars, so that just be counted 1E and 2E and 3E and 4E and And this is our primary pattern with bass, snare, bass on 1 and 3, snare on 2 and 4. So you could play this pattern either way, with 8th note or 16th, okay? And this is our primary pattern, which is really important to learn because that's going to, branch out into all the more complex patterns that you're going to play later on. Okay, so number 1 is literally just 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. If you're counting it as 8ths, if you're counting it as 16ths, 1E and a 2E and a 3E and a 4E and a, okay? You see this first note, that's beat 1, right? We have, this is information here. Sorry, I know, I'm trying to get the camera in focus. 4/4, that denotes what we're in. So the top 4 is how many counts are in the measure, and the bottom 4 denotes what type of note gets 1 count, okay? And I know that's kind of confusing at first, but basically the top 4 means we're counting to 4. The bottom 4 means that a quarter note, so a 4 denotes quarter note. If an 8 was on the bottom, that would mean that it's eighth notes, right? If a 16's on the bottom, then that's 16th notes. So your denominator is always going to denote what type of note gets one count, and the numerator is going to denote how many counts that note gets. So say it was, 12/8. That means that you're counting 12 eighth notes, okay? So odd time is kind of a different animal, and cover that, jumping a lot of steps. But I just want to show you that that's what full drum set patterns look like, and it's really not difficult to read. So the first one, 1E and a 2. So snare is written in the middle line, bass is on the first one. So you can see how these are stacked. We call these stacked patterns because you're coming down with the bass and the hi-hat at the same time, okay? Now, beat 2 on the snare is written in the middle of the space, or the second space from the top on the staff. You can always think of stem pointing down towards the ground as the bass drum. It depends on how it's written. Sometimes they have the staff going up, but most of the time it's staff pointed down. Then you have beat 2 is on the snare, right? Beat 3 on the bass drum again, beat 4 on the snare. Okay, and then it just repeats, same thing for bar 2. Now the next one I'll show you, you have beat 1 again, bass, snare, bass, bass, snare. So this would be counted as 1, 2, and 3, 4. Bass, snare, bass, bass, snare. Now if you added 16ths to it, it would be 1E and a 2E and 3 and 4. So 1E and a 2E and a 3 and 4E and a. So I'm just counting the syllables of the bass. That's why I left out the E andas when I counted the bass notes. Because what you want to do is you just want to really analyze the bass and snare figure, because your muscle memory is going to get used to playing on the hi-hat, either eighth notes, 16ths, or a combo pattern, okay? So that's kind of how you analyze it, and I know these are all 16ths, and that's kind of jumping the gun. But what I'm going to do for you here is I'm going to play these, and then you can pause it on any of these, so that way you can just kind of look at it and analyze it. Now, these last 3 patterns are some of the most difficult, okay? And so I'll cover that in another video. But what you start getting into is what's called a dotted eighth tied to a 16th. Now you can see here, it's the first and the last of a group of 4 16ths. So this pattern would be 1 and 2, 3, a 4. So bass, bass, snare, bass, bass, snare. So dotted eighth tied to a 16th will always be phrased like that, as the 1E and up, but, 1G and up. Okay, so you can see how it's the 1E and up, the rock side, right? 1E and up. So it's the first and last of those, okay? So again, just if you want to pause on any of them, try to hold the sheet back maybe, and then you can zoom in maybe, okay? So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to show you, and I know that kind of jumping the gun a little bit, and we're going for our doubles and that stuff, and I'm going to cover that too. But I just want to introduce the reading part, because a lot of people are scared of that at first, like, do I have to learn how to read to be able to play? And the short answer is no. There's a lot of players, me included, that have learned mostly all by ear. But reading, was crucial because of not just the teaching component, but, reading charts. And we kind of use it more as a roadmap as we're playing through, because anytime you're doing improv or that kind of stuff, you're not playing exactly what's written unless the band director wants you to. But a lot of times, they'll call odd things out, like verse, or like let's take it to the head, or like, and it's kind of like it jumps around. So really it's our roadmap, and I know these are just patterns. It's not like a song structure or that kind of thing. And then we get into how to read fills and notes on different parts of the drum, okay? So, and I'll cover that later, and that's very easy too. But it's just it's the staff that denotes each space of what drum. So these are all snare. The one that's going up, that's your first rack tom. Back to snare. Back to first rack tom. Snare, snare. Tom, tom, tom. the next tom tom tom, or snare snare snare, and then 4 E andas on the next tom tom tom. So you can see how they kind of combine different notes, but that's how they're written when you're looking at notation of where the toms are. Oh, and that's a good thing too. I can show you quickly. I know it's going too long, but see how these are connected with one bar, or these are connected with one bar. Those are eighth notes. Okay, so see how these are connected with 2 bars. Those are 16th notes. So that's a good way to learn, and quarter notes will just be like this by themselves. Okay? So basically this one would be snare, 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 tom. Snare, 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 tom, tom, tom. Snare, snare, tom, tom, tom. Snare, 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 tom, 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 1. Okay? So, and I'll cover that, later on, and I know that's jumping the gun kind of thing. But just that primary pattern I was just showing you with the 16ths, okay? It's because you're getting your kid soon, so that's why I'm doing this, okay? Because you can go into this, and you can practice this stuff on your pad, like how I was doing 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and bass and snare and bass and snare. And my legs are full of bruises, so just be careful how hard you hit yourself. But and you can also practice this way for finger strokes. So if you don't have a pad, you'll hear audibly to yourself, and you can practice doubles that way. And it's a great way to get that finger strength in. Okay, just a little trick. So you just hold it at the fulcrum, where the fulcrum is on the stick, and then you can use your fingers to do that. And practice singles, doubles, diddles, whatever you want to do, okay? So, like I showed you on the pad of the primary beat, so it's 1 and 3 on the kick, 2 and 4 on the snare. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4, okay? So that remains consistent no matter what you're putting up top with your hi-hat. We call it a ride pattern, but hi-hat, ride pattern, whatever, If I say ride pattern, it can correspond to the hi-hat too, okay? It just means what we're playing with our right hand is our ride pattern, okay? So basically, once you put it together with an eighth note pattern and crossed, now that's the more difficult part once you start to add this hand, right? Especially if you haven't done it before. But that's why starting with eighth notes and really, 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 really slow is really important, okay? So with your right hand, because you're going to be you're a righty, so playing crossed, you're going to be matching your bass drum with the first stroke of your right hand, okay? Because remember, it's going to be 1 and 2 and 3 and 4, okay? And you'll keep going in a sight, and that'll get your muscle memory in. But it's so important to keep those eighth notes going, because that's how everything else is going to fit underneath. 1 and 2. So even if you take your right hand out, that remains consistent underneath. And that's really important just to develop that, because once you get the muscle memory of the eighth notes, then you'll fit all sorts of other stuff underneath it. Same thing with 16ths, okay? So that first pattern I showed you, even though 16ths were written on it, see how you can play? It's just 1 and 3 on the bass, 2 and 4 on the snare. Same thing, okay? So if you play 16ths, now it's jumping the gun even more, but your 16ths, you've already started playing, right? Remember the forearm crusher, or just playing single stroke 16ths? Same thing. Right? But now we're up here, okay? And these are called single stroke 16ths, and I'm going to show you one-handed 16ths in a second. So single stroke 16ths, same thing you've been doing, but, and I know you don't have a kit yet, but when you do, this is all you're going to be doing with the pattern number 1 that's on the page. 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and a bass E and a snare E and a bass E and a snare. So that's all that pattern number 1 is written as. Literally. 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and a 1 E and a 2, and it's written in 2 bars. So that's one way, and then the benefit to that is that you can play faster this way because eventually your hand will get tired playing one-handed 16ths. But the cool thing about playing one-handed 16ths is then you can fit all sorts of ghosts underneath too. So if I just play that basic 1 and 3 again, but 16ths one-handed, it would be 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 Okay, so it's the same figure, it just, and it will sound different depending on, tip versus shaft. We call this a bark. So if you hit, do a bark quickly, or an open closed, we call pea soup. It sounds like pea soup, pea soup, pea soup, or open closed. But you can hear it. Pea soup, pea soup, pea soup, pea soup, pea soup, pea soup. So just a little joke in the drummer world, okay? So now, once you got that, that is so crucial for, expanding to the whole rest of the universe of it. Now I'll just play that number 2 one for you, okay? So remembering number 2 is 1, 2, and 3, 4. Bass, snare, bass, bass, snare. Okay, so first thing, a lot of that what we do with our students is just figuring out the bass and snare first. Right? So that way you're knowing exactly where each note falls. You have it within a common pulse. You want to make sure you're staying in that pulse. And then if you play with eighth notes, 1 and 2 and 3, 4, 1, 2 and 3, 4, 1, 2 and 3, Sorry, I added some ghosts. It's just a habit to add some ghosts in there. But that's all you're doing when you're analyzing those type of patterns. So don't be scared of reading, okay? And I know this video's gotten way too long just covering that, so I'm going to post this, and this will help you though 100% for when you get your kit, and it's coming really soon. So this is really I promise it'll help, because once you get to it, you'll right away be like, oh, okay, this is kind of where my hands go, these are the note values, this is where it can go. And the last thing I'm going to show you before you get your kit is that you can practice those exact same things. Now, I know my hands aren't crossed. You can cross your hands if you want to practice like that, but then you're playing the front of the stick kind of thing, right? So it's okay. We call this playing open. And it's a great thing to learn how to play open and left. Play anything that you can right-handed, play left-handed. And it takes some practice, but it's very beneficial. So last thing I was going to say is just practicing those patterns that I was playing on the kit, just on your pad. So the first one, again, 1 and 3 on the bass, 2 and 4 on the snare. So you're going to see me stomping on the ground for 1 and 3, okay? And then this is doing my right hand. This is my right hand, right? I think. No, I'm just kidding. So right hand is doing your nice, it's like that bouncing of the ball motion. Same thing when you're up here. Okay? So doing that 8th note pattern with your right hand, and 2 and 4 with your left hand, and 1 and 3 with your bass drum, okay? Or bass drum on the ground, okay? So 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and stomp and snare and stomp and snare. That kind of idea. And then you'll just get faster with it. Stomp and snare and stomp and snare and stomp and snare, and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. That kind of thing, okay? And you can even do it with 16ths. 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4. So I see I'm just moving my hand over a little bit, because what it is you're doing 1 E and a 2. So right, left, 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 right, left. And bass drum matching on your, it'll match with your right hand, because you're doing 1 and 3. So it'll be 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4. So even if you're doing 16ths, it'll match your right hand, okay? So I'm just moving my hands from 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and a 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4. So you can do it that way, or one-handed. 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and a 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4. And then I had more fun playing that way myself, dude. But that's a great exercise, because it's going to increase that hand speed. And then you can start playing French too if you want. But that finger, you can get a lot out of that finger stroke. And I kind of play like they call American grip, like halfway in between French and German kind of thing. So you're not all the way, with your hands pointed down towards the ground like German. It's like waving bye-bye, we tell the kids kind of thing. And then French, is where you're just using all fingers kind of thing. And then American is like somewhere in between, kind of like that. At least that's what I've heard it described out from other people, okay? So you can practice your patterns that way too, okay? So let me know if you have any questions on this vid. I know it was kind of jumping the gun, but I just wanted to quell your fears about the reading. the note values, all that stuff. It really is easy to do, and it's just like with the repetition of practicing with the sticks, repetition of practicing with the reading, and then knowing how to analyze it and having help analyzing it. If you have any questions, I'm all there for you, buddy. All right, thanks again. You did awesome. You're so happy that you're enjoying this, and anything that you want to learn or any other questions you have, like I said, I'm all here for you. All right, and then the next one's going to be the one about all the doubles and all that. Okay, promise. All right, buddy. See ya.